I'd just like to say welcome to our two guests, and we're really happy to have them both here. Ted flying over from Atlanta to join us here, fantastic. And Per coming here.
From Gothenburg.
From Gothenburg.
From Gothenburg, yes.
And also offering us these perfect localities for this little day here. You know, we are really surrounded by history, aren't we? As we walk up the stairs, we feel the history of Volvo already from the beginning. My work at the Center for Business History is to be in charge of research questions. I try to build networks to the research world, academia. We make projects, we build, we write applications mostly, you know, and then we write some books as well. And there is so much interesting to be done between the archives, the research world, and the corporate world, I think. But that's enough for me. And now I leave the floor right away to Ted, who is an extremely experienced person in his field. You have headed the heritage department, the archives of Coca Cola for near 20 years now.
I've been there for 20 years, headed it for the last 4.
For the last 4?
Yes.
But you know this world, and it's going to be so interesting to hear you do your presentations, and I leave the word to you.
Well, thank you. Anders and Alex came to Atlanta last year as part of the ICA conference, International Council on the Archives, the Business Archives section. Coca-Cola hosted it, and Anders and Alex came. And as part of it, we gave them our deep dive on brand. So what I'm going to show you is essentially a class I teach at Coke. It's not a real class, but it's the Marketing 2.0 DNA study, and it's the DNA of the Coca-Cola brand. So I'm going to take you through a little bit of the study, and then I'm going to show you a current example of what we do. Trust your neighbor, but brand your cattle. A very American way of thinking about things. But a brand itself came from clearly identifying something. In the case of branding cattle, it goes all the way back to ancient Egyptian days. They branded their cattle. They put a special mark on them to say, this one is mine. And the American West, the wild, wild West that you've seen on TV, and you know from experience, it's the same thing, the Triple H, all the different brands. So what is a brand? It's a clearly identifying mark. I'm very fortunate because I have 3 icons in my brand universe. The script logo essentially hasn't changed since 1888. That's what it looks like now. That's what it looks like then. We've added colors to it. We've done some changes to it. The logo itself was actually a fortuitous accident. It was written by the company's accountant. A guy named Frank Robinson wrote out this beautiful script logo in Spencerian script. In America, in the days before typewriters, you either wrote in Palmer method or the Spencerian method. Spencerian was your bookkeeper. So our marketing team always says that this is the only time that the accounting function ever gave him something to work with. But it's a pretty good thing to work with. But the brand, the logo has not changed. It's the same in Sweden as it is everywhere else. Quick, name a soft drink. The iconic Coca-Cola bottle, designed by a Swede, Alexander Samuelsson in 1915. There was so much competition in the market that we asked for a proprietary package, something that only Coca-Cola could have. So anytime that you saw that shape, you knew that you were getting a Coca-Cola. And the shape has remained essentially unchanged for 100 years. Last year we just celebrated the 100th anniversary of the bottle, and we actually did a presentation here in Sweden at the Technology Museum, drawing on Samuelsson's role in the project and the original patent sketch. And then, interestingly, as a brand historian, the way the artists have treated it. Andy Warhol did the famous Coke bottle number 3. So the point that a brand icon has become a symbol of pop art as well as a symbol of commerce. The color red. We own red, and red has been our primary color all the way since the very beginning. We actually drew red lettering on a white background with that famous logo that you saw, and that was our advertising motif. To the point that when you see this sample, and by the way, there is no official Pantone for red for the fashion people. We don't have a Pantone. We don't need one because Coca-Cola Red is so clearly identified. Some of y'all may know him. This is Haddon Sundblom. He is the father of the modern image of Santa Claus, and he was an artist of Swedish heritage who painted the first Coca-Cola Santa Claus in 1931. You can see that image of Santa right there. Coke had used different types of Santa Claus, and I always get asked in December when the media show up at our door, did Coca-Cola invent Santa Claus? Nope. We didn't. Santa was around. But different cultures had different visions of Santa. Some had him as tall. In America, it was actually Thomas Nast drew him as this little dwarf who smoked a long pipe. Hans Sundblom drew on his Swedish heritage, and he painted Father Christmas, essentially, for Coca-Cola. Every year from 1931 until 1964. So Coke didn't invent Santa Claus, but we did help standardize the modern image of Santa around the world. And I really introduced that for this right here. This was a letter written by Hans Sundblom in 1954 explaining what he'd looked for and what brand Coca-Cola meant. And I love the line right there. I learned that the red, white, and green combination was much more than a temporary device of harmonious color. It had been planned carefully and thoughtfully, much as a nation might plan its flag. Red for energy, white for wholesomeness, and green for refreshing coolness. But the point on that one, and the reason that I like it, is what is a brand again? In this particular case, it's been planned as carefully as a nation would plan a flag. So if you see the tricolor, you know immediately what you're seeing. You see the Swedish flag, you see the blue and the yellow, you know immediately Sweden. So what is Coca-Cola? Coca-Cola is this combination of different colors that creates an emotion. And by capturing that emotion, which in our case is optimism, that's the core of our brand, you can see it, optimism and refreshing right there. And it hasn't changed. This letter was written in 1954, but it's essentially the same today. And then Coca-Cola being Coca-Cola, we standardized it. Coke not only invented an amazing drink in Coca-Cola, but the standardization of the brand is what set Coke apart from every other brand in the world. From the very beginning, from that logo in 1888, this is a standards guide from 1950, but I've got them going all the way back. The logo has to be identical. The colors have to be identical. I mean, we in Atlanta, we basically sell syrup and advertising. And we sell it to a local bottler or a local customer, and then they take it and customize it. You know, that case back there had some amazing stuff that I'd never seen because the marketing is done locally. So you'll see a Swedish recipe booklet back there. I've never seen that, but I know I've seen one from Morocco, I've seen one from Japan, I've seen one from around the world. We gave the core idea of recipes with Coca-Cola that matched the food harmoniously to the different nations around the world and let them advertise it locally. You're in 90, Coke is in 207 countries around the world. Every country except for Cuba and North Korea sells Coca-Cola. I mean, it is truly a ubiquitous worldwide brand. And that standardization is what allows us to be sold everywhere, but still have that same brand identity. Is this the video now? Okay, this, before you do it, whoop. This is interesting. This is James Somerville. He's the head of global design for Coca-Cola. You're going to hear another accent. He's from Leeds. I love his accent. But James is a true disciple of the archives. He's in all the time. His team is in all the time. And I want you to know, we didn't make this video in the archives. They actually made it for the marketing team. And Thread, what you see down there, is the marketing portal. So go ahead and run James.
Unlike art, design is there to solve some kind of a problem. Maybe people don't know what the problem is yet, but it's there to create something that possibly improves the way we live and conduct our everyday lives. We're in the Coke archives, and I think there's nothing that this brand has not done. It is 130 years almost of communication through those years. This is my inspiration. Coke's always been relevant in people's lives. I think it's been shown in many, many different situations. What I wanted to do was to think, well, what if we took that same situation? What if we put that then through the lens of a new treatment, a new way of looking at it that would appeal to a new generation? Could that work for us while still having roots into our past, but seen in a completely new and fresh way? You don't need to reinvent Coke. Coke is Coke, and therefore what we need to do is to just kind of embrace what we've done in the past, but give it a new skin, a new look, and a new feel. Yeah, well, these images on the lightbox, original negs from the 80s. What you'll see going on here is this kind of two people, boy meets girl, embracing. Clearly they're either friends or lovers, and you know, there's a story going on. So a classic Coca-Cola image. So in many ways, part of the process was to look for some gemstones like that and then think, okay, what does a kind of contemporary version of that look like? What we decided to do was not just copy it. It's important not just to copy the image, it's to take inspiration from it. We kind of created the same moment, but added a little bit more story. They've just come out of the cinema, they've maybe just been to see a concert. So creating some texture You start to put the story together yourself. But importantly, in focus, center stage, is the Coke bottle. When we casted for this particular shoot, we were looking for a balance of what we might call higher end models, for us higher end, but balance that with some street casting. Street casting, just because they had a great look, actually adding that authenticity and a little bit of grit, a little edge, while still feeling beautiful and the guy and girl next door, was really kind of one of the things we wanted to achieve. Bringing that kind of fearlessness and that bravery to a commercial project and an iconic brand like Coca Cola. Sure, there's an element of risk, but actually by doing that, really magical things can happen as a creative output.
So I'm going to quickly run you through some of the output of James's work. That light box you saw, we literally sat in the archives and we pulled old ads and he put them on a light box. So on the left on each one of these is going to be a piece of historic advertising, and on the right is how it was reinterpreted in the newest campaign that we're doing right now. And he was after the emotion. We would go through dozens of ads, and I'm trying to help him. And he said, I'm looking for emotions. And when I find the right emotions, I'll know how to rekindle that. Notice, too, that the talent is localized, just the same way that it's done in Sweden. The ads were all done, and they were shot around the world using local talent. The Yes Girl 1946 is probably the most iconic billboard we ever did. It won every advertising award. And now it's been reinterpreted twice. And you can see he's not just copying, he's got the emotion that he's looking for. One of the things, the drink shot. Drink shots in our world, it's different from Benetton, but getting the perfect drink shot is such a challenge, and the photographers work on it constantly. The Boys on the Bench, this is one of the first integrated ad that an American corporation did. It was 1969, truly integrated, as opposed to, we had African American advertising as early as the teens, but it was always, everybody was all black or all white. This was one of the first just truly integrated ads. I threw this one up here. In America, we have a saying, it's not your grandfather's old. In other words, in our archives, I teach my staff every day, when you deal with marketers, your job is to make Coca-Cola and our archives seem retro and cool, not nostalgic. We're not your grandmother's attic. We're not your grandfather's Oldsmobile. It's not just a collection of stuff just for stuff's sake, but we use it as a teaching tool for the marketers, for PR, and for the different ways that we activate. Also put this in because I knew Volvo was following me, and Volvo is not your father's Oldsmobile either. So I think we're going to take questions at the end, and I'll toss over to Volvo now.
Thanks, Ted.
And Per, now the word is yours.
Already?
Yes.
I think we have to set up the computer.
We have to set up the computer.
Yeah.
Now, Per Carleö, you've been making a big change in the Volvo Cars Corporation in very short time, I think, with your work and putting new content into the brand in many interesting ways. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what you say here and see how you work with history. So we take this 10-minute presentation, more or less, and then after that we sit down and do the discussion, and after that we will also open the floor for questions. So add your questions and keep them in memory, and then we'll take them at the end, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
I think
Let's whiz it through. I'm going to talk to you about how we almost exploit and utilize our heritage and our origin when we're doing not only our marketing, but also our strategy for the whole company today. But I wanted to start with a short film that kind of summarizes, I think, really summarizes who we are and what we stand for. So here it goes.
People. 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 That's it. We love technology, but only if it makes life less complicated for people. work hard to come up with new ways of making our cars less of a burden to our planet. Because this planet is home for people. When it comes to safety, we are the world's most innovative car brand. Always have been, always will be. Because that saves the lives of people. Some say cars are all about going fast. Some say cars are all about looking cool. They aren't wrong, but our main passion is to help our drivers and their loved ones to live longer, to help them take responsibility for the world around them, and to help them live a life less complicated. Cars are driven by people. And that's why we designed them around you.
I don't know if anyone counted, but I think, oh, thanks. I think we mentioned people 26 times or something like that in that film. But that's really what it's all about. And our founders, already they said, cars are driven by people. The guiding principle behind everything we make at Volvo therefore is and must remain safety. So it was about safety and people, and it is still safety and people. But of course, today, people are buying different kinds of cars. They want more than safety, of course, but we will always keep our anchor really, really firmly in the ground, because that's why we are even existing. But people want a really interesting experience. They want the latest technology, the latest drive technology. They want new technology. They even, I don't know how you feel about it, let's discuss it later, but they even want the cars to drive themselves now and then. So let's discuss that later. So it is different from before, but we're building on our origin and heritage. I thought it was a really interesting question. I think it was the lady back there asking Ben before about companies are being bought and then the strategy changes and the heritage and origins are being kind of wiped away. I really felt, honestly, when we were bought by a Chinese company, of course everyone was a bit scared and afraid and what's going to happen, what's it going to be. But they were really keen on, we bought you as a company, we bought a brand and we want the brand to come alive. We want to release that brand. We wanted, you are Swedish, you're a Swedish brand, and we want it to come alive even more. So you're all about safety, quality and environment, and we want it to come across even more. And we were like, are you really sure? Yes, we're really sure. Because that will make the difference in the automotive industry now and in the future as well. So we call the strategy Designed Around You. It's about people. It's about trying to create a really great car experience, automotive experience for today and for the future. And we really built a lot on this. So the design now is really built on Swedish thinking, Swedish design thinking on the outside, but also on the inside. So we're really kind of taking another step when it comes to design and Scandinavian design and Swedish design and letting the materials really speak for themselves. Also, even in the details, it's really important. It's not only about the whole, but the small details sometimes just make it all come through. In the film, we talked about the environment. It's extremely important for us all, and we're all the time working hard with new technologies. So we have of course petrol and diesel engines, but we have all kinds of technologies and also hybrids, and we will release electric car in the coming years. I'll come back to that. Also, I talked about this. sometimes in the future, of course, I really like to drive a car. I really like to. But when I go with a car between Stockholm and Gothenburg, sometimes in between, it's not that fun. And then being able to release the steering wheel and just let the car drive, that appeals actually to me at least. But we're all the time, as I said, we're really about safety. And sometimes you need support. Sometimes, as a human, you can't tell and see everything. But actually, a computer can see a lot and can help you and support you when you're driving. So we're creating a lot of technologies around this. So a Volvo today is actually seeing people, they're seeing cyclists, they're seeing other cars, and they're seeing a lot, and actually braking and avoiding accidents. Even for now, large animals in the forest. You've all been driving in this situation. It's really nasty if you get into this situation. But now today we have a system that can support you in this situation. And why? Well, we set up a strategy quite a few years ago and it's quite bold. It is a vision. But we said no one should be killed or seriously injured in a new Volvo by 2020. And we are actually almost there. We are almost, we have the technology now. We see the technology that can actually help us take us to this vision. So it's really interesting. Just looking at the XC60, it's a model we launched in 2008. It has all the technology that makes it detect people and cars and everything, and making sure that you don't actually crash. But it's really important to never forget where you come from. And this has really been, as I said, this has been a fact for the strategy as such, for the product strategy and product development and design, but also for the marketing. So we created a campaign that really built upon this people heritage and this people focus, but also on the Swedish heritage and the Swedish origin. And we've launched a number of campaigns the latest years. And it's also built upon, sorry for you English-speaking guys, it says, no advertising, I've had enough, I can't take it anymore. And that's really about people as well, because that's an insight, it's a really important insight if you're working with marketing. People are extremely tired of what you're doing. They don't want another ad, sorry. But they love stories. People love stories, they like to hear about stories. They are open to involve themselves with brands and interact with brands if it's an appealing story, if it's something that appeals to them. So that's how we've kind of tried to build it all. We built it on people's stories and humanity. And we've actually, this is a really boring slide, but it shows just, it's something called ad recall. It's how people actually recognize that they've seen some kind of communication from a company. And while our competitors are actually going down, have a negative trend, it's a trend in the whole society. Because people don't want to see ads, they don't recognize ads and don't remember them. And we've actually been able to actually have quite a positive effect there year after year. So we've tried to create these stories, not glancing that much back into our history, but really focusing on people, and it's all about people, as I said, creating stories about the XC60. It's about a car. It's about you buy this car not only rationally, you buy it emotionally. You want to get away and leave this big city behind. So we created a story with these guys. They were a house duo, or trio actually. They were on the top of their career and they wanted to quit. So we created a farewell campaign together with them where they told their story, what they were going to do next. And the car had its role. And we've kind of created campaigns like that. We've continued with you guys living in Sweden. I think you've seen this campaign. We recently launched another campaign with him, and it's also about, that's really about origin and Swedishness and really talking about the values about being Swedish and where you're coming from. So that's really what we kind of put him on a pedestal, and yeah, he liked it. No, yeah, and it's all about people all through. We created campaigns about we want to talk about how we're actually, we want to prove this notion of made by Sweden and really prove that we are made by Sweden. So we created a campaign with different famous Swedes from different parts of the country. And it's not about the car only, it's about the people, and then it's about the car as such. Also, we took another step. We said at the beginning of this year, we're not only made by Sweden, we're actually made by people as such. So we launched a campaign talking about our employees. It's really inside out. And usually marketeers are saying, you must start from the outside and go, but this was a different kind of step. We had a record result in our company. We acknowledged that it was the people, the people working, the employees who had created this result. So we wanted to celebrate them. And we also knew that they came from all over the world, and we thought this was really, really interesting and a positive thing. So we wanted to celebrate them. And so we made them being Zlatan. It's all built upon this strategy, actually. We have a new, it's a very popular buzzword, CSR, but we have a new strategy in our company called omtanke. We call it omtanke even in English-speaking languages. Because we think how we differentiate from all the other car companies, and especially the premium ones, where it's all about power and premiumness, etc. It's about omtanke. It's about creating a car for people who actually care about other people. And that's really it right now from me.
Thank you so much, Per, and thank you so much, Ben, for 2 interesting presentations. Well, actually, this one is disputed.
No, you can have it.
It's for me, but now our guest from America is going to have it.
Yay! I'll take it.
Would you settle
I feel
for
like
the
Santa Claus.
Wallenberg chair?
Absolutely, the Wallenberg chair is okay as well. Yeah.
The next best
Thanks.
thing.
Yes.
Well, now for this conversation, I think we have. It was a very interesting thing to team the two of you up here. I think we have some similarities and we have some differences as well. We have two very strong brands. One probably would say the strongest brand in the world, perhaps, arguably. That's so sorry. I wasn't thinking of you now. But it's two very strong brands, and they're both acting, in industries that are, I should say, history-focused in different ways. Then again, so that's a similarity, but there are obvious differences in selling soft drinks and cars. We can agree on that.
Yes.
Now, history works in different ways, and I think, Ben, in your presentation, you mentioned the interesting word of nostalgia, and I'd like to cling to that a little bit, because I think that both of these two industries are really full of nostalgia in different ways. It's easy to wind up in nostalgia when you speak about cars. People feel very strongly about cars. Same thing goes with nutrition, and soft drinks definitely have a strong nostalgic value to, well, all of us in different ways. But how do you go beyond, how do you go beyond nostalgia in your work with history marketing? I'd like to ask this to both of you. Maybe we could start with Ted, please.
It depends on the brand. Coca Cola has a nostalgic feel, but we own actually, I think, 1,200, Freedom, am I right? 1,200 brands around the world, 4,000 flavors, including juices, milks, nutritionals. So the Suja juice, which is a fortified water, and it's treated completely different than brand Coca Cola. So it depends on the brand and the marketing team. Fana's a very old brand. It's one that marketing team has been in the archives extensively trying to get to the roots of Fana, what the colors, the way that color, yellow, green, blue. So we treat Fanta and Coca-Cola. Every brand has its own personality, and you massage the best of that personality to the forefront. But I don't want nostalgic. Nostalgia is the wrong word. Emotive would be a stronger, probably more accurate word. When you see the advertising, it's supposed to create an emotion, not the feeling of oldness.
Interesting. And Per?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's all the time a balance. I would like to say because as a car company, you have a number of fans, today, but also fans focusing on what we used to be and the history, and that's great. We love our fans, but you can't get stuck in there. But it's a balance. So, for instance, when we launched our new estate wagon, the V90, it's down below. The order books are open, so if anyone wants an interesting. We kind of focused as well on our heritage and how we've all the time been a car company about estate wagons. So we actually, at the same time we show the V90, we show our history of estate wagons to kind of build upon the history and the heritage.
Can I throw one more comment in too? Sure. We made probably one of the most famous commercials in the world with "I'd like to buy the world of Coke," but I never bring marketers down and say, redo this ad because this is, it was a good idea, but it had a time and place. But you do study that emotion because it can help you know what's coming next. So that's what you look forward by looking to the past.
That's true. Interesting answers here.
We also have as I said, a number of fans, and it's so fun because a car you interact with and you kind of live with it, and so we have all these car meets, of course, and heritage events. Like in Sweden, we have Tjolöholm Heritage Classic. It's a really fantastic event. We have it internationally as well, and we take part of those and meet people and discuss our heritage. And those people are, of course, if you have a really old Volvo, you're not driving that in an everyday. So you also buy another car. So it's an interesting balance. Getting the fans, utilizing your history to kind of make your fans buy your brand today.
Right. A little bit on the same line here. I think, and I may be wrong here, but using history can be done in different ways. You can use it to make clear that you are a part of a tradition, or you can use history as a contrast to say, this is the way it used to be, now it's different, it's all changed. And then there is everything in between. And I think maybe in a sense, in the two industries that you represent, this is different, because in the soft drink industry, continuity is truly important, and you have to show it all the time. And your friend with the Leeds accent put that very well, how he tries to put new content, but into the same message somehow. Now with cars, you can't very well do that. You can say that we build on tradition, but you can't say that we basically sell the same motors as we did in 1927, because people wouldn't buy your cars. You have to work with contrast, and I think historically you have worked very in a very aware way with contrast. And in Ben Wobb's presentation with Volkswagen, placing the old Volkswagen models alongside with the new one is the same. And I think Volvo has done that time and again as well.
Yeah,
contrast is really important for you.
It is, but it's also, as Ben said, it's about learning and learning about looking at your history and then proceeding. In our one of my favorite places in Gothenburg is our we have a museum, a Volvo museum, where you can go through and kind of see all the history, and all of a sudden you see, wow, that's an electric car, and it was built 1976. Okay. What happened and why and what did we learn, etc., etc. It's really interesting. And then you can go through memory lane and kind of see step by step and learn a lot about today and today's society and the cars and how we build cars today and why.
Right. Yeah. And Ben?
Ted.
Ted,
yeah.
Sorry, too many Bens. Sorry.
I will say, I have a teenage son who just started driving last year, so I bought him a Volvo because it's the safest car. Because its symbol is safety, so that's what it's known for. So if you've got a bad driver, buy him a car that's at least going to keep him safe, if not the car.
Good drivers are welcome as well.
Now, can tradition also be a burden? Can this path dependence that we heard about also be something that keeps you from avoiding changes that you'd like to do? Say, oh no, you mustn't lose our main path here. You mustn't you must keep to the track. Do you meet this in your work, Ted?
I think that we do, and one of the things, we have a letter that was written in 1959 called The Power of Presence, and it was written by a head of advertising named Deloney Sledge, and he was asked if Coke should keep the sign at Piccadilly Square. Very expensive, the rent was going up, high value, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing because I can't get the quote perfect, but he said, those who are content to do second best will be second best. You have to consistently strive for excellence. And he then pointed out that marketing is a river flowing, and there's constantly new teenagers, there's new people entering our market, there's new drivers every day, and you have to reinvent your brand every generation because it's a generational shift. So if you reinvent Coca-Cola while keeping its essence pure, then we've done our job right. And my job as the archivist for Coca-Cola is to teach the marketers the core values of Coca-Cola and then let them, we call it freedom within a framework. The framework is Coca-Cola is about optimism, refreshment, XYZ. Right. You now have the freedom, go make your ads.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think we were really close to the topic just a minute ago, because if you're safety, it's of course a risk that you're for bad drivers, you're a bit boring, and how do you kind of make it emotional? And buying a car today, it's an expensive purchase, and how do you make it emotional? So that's something you have to work with. But saying we're not about safety is not an option, of course. It's building upon that heritage. It's building upon, if you're safe, you can actually do more. And we're not BMW. We're never going to try to be BMW, but we can be. Of course, it's fun to drive if you want to drive a Volvo as well. So yeah.
That brings us to another thing, I think, because this means your brand is, obviously strongly connected to Swedishness and to, maybe stereotypes that we have about Sweden and safety notions in Sweden, which fits very well. And of course, Coca-Cola and the US are almost sort of, one slogan in itself to look at that. Now, as you say, there is the other stereotype of Swedes. It's not just safe; it's also boring.
Yeah.
And that's the backside of the coin, and you get that with you, and you have to deal with it. And there is, of course, a backside to the coin of being connected to Americanness as well, and a super political power, and all the controversies that comes with this. And in your history in Coca-Cola, you have met, of course, the trouble of all of a sudden being connected to the US. Could you both please comment on the backsides of the coin?
When you showed that, the moose, we've all seen this. I've never seen that. I've never seen a moose. So Coca-Cola is an American company, one of the best-known brands in the world, and we have received criticisms over time. We left India for nearly 30 years. We were boycotted in the Middle East. However, if you go to Mexico, they think it's a Mexican brand because it's so ingrained within the culture. It's different. And I think Ben said it. We don't own our brand. We don't own the brand Coca-Cola. We found that out very strenuously when we introduced New Coke and we changed the formula. And it made the nightly news, and there were protests in America, and we had to come back with the classic formula. And at that moment in 1985, it was a full realization. We don't own brand Coca-Cola. The consumers own it, and it's theirs. We just have to be good caretakers of it. So while it's an American company and the name on the bottle is the name on the building, it's the Coca-Cola company. You polish it up as best you can, and it's presented to the world on a daily basis.
I'd like to say that we actually exploit a bit the fact about the traditional views of Sweden, and we kind of we exploit it and make it show another side of Sweden. So some refer to it as Sweden noir or something like that. It's I sometimes get complaints that why are your films so moody and they're so dark, and but it's a lot of emotional appeals in it, but it's more than just the mood, etc. It's also the topics as such. We thought it was extremely interesting that a person with immigrant parents, grown up in Rosengård, is now kind of the number one Swede, the symbol of Sweden and the king of Sweden almost. We thought that was extremely interesting. So making a campaign out of that, and talking about Swedishness and what is Swedishness today is turning it a bit upside down.
I totally agree, actually. Now, on another topic, history marketing is, of course, by definition, something we do to the outer world. We communicate outlooks. But what about history work within the organizations then? How do you work with this? And I know, for instance, that within Volvo Cars, there used to be this old tradition. I think it's a very interesting ritual tradition. The reenactment of the first crayfish dinner, correct me if I'm wrong, where the two founders here in Stockholm, Stureplan, had a dinner and they thought maybe we should start producing cars together. And this crayfish dinner was annually reproduced with veterans of the Volvo organization, year by year by year, until they had to stop for practical reasons because the veterans were turning far too many, sometimes in the late 50s or 60s. This is very strong history work within the organization. How do you use your history internally?
We use it, I would say, a lot. We have two representatives here. We have Søren from our museum and Per from our actually just working fully 100% on heritage and marketing and talking about our heritage. So we use it a lot. And we also use it in both internally, talking about where we come from in our history, but also externally. For instance, we see in social media today, people are extremely interested in heritage and when we're talking about where we come from and talk about show old cars, they're sometimes even getting more engagement on the old cars than the new cars because there's so much emotion connected to it.
Right.
So yeah, we utilize it internally and externally, definitely. Yeah.
Mm. And then Coca-Cola.
At Coke, we have a program called the Coca Cola Ambassador Program, and we have the different levels or different ways they teach ambassador, the core business, and there's a heritage ambassador module. So tomorrow I'll be at the bottling plant in Sweden giving a heritage 101 presentation to the employees, and the goal on that is to inspire them with the way that Coke has innovated over the years. Our CSR story is so strong. We go back as a global partner with the Red Crescent to 1917. The announcement we just made yesterday about 100% water replenishment. So we'll go through the heritage over time. I'll teach them some of the same brand stuff and then bring it all the way up to date. Externally, the same thing. Our Coca-Cola Journey website, the heritage section is usually number 2. Jobs is always number 1. Everybody wants a job. And number 2, it's either heritage or recipes. It's interesting. So heritage and food are 2 and 3, and it's the collectibles. People love the old Coke stuff.
Right.
My email box fills up on a daily basis with how much is this bottle worth. Everybody has seen Pawn Stars or those kind of shows, and they think they have something worth $1 million sitting in their attic. And they all email me.
I'm soon going to open up for questions. Just one last from me now. And we talked about slogans here and core values. And we pick up core values from history. But we sometimes tend to forget that the content of those core values have changed over the years. You both work for old organizations. And safety today doesn't mean the same as it did, for instance, for Assar Gabrielsen. In 1927. Today we put something else into the content. He probably talked more about reliable cars that actually started when you wanted to and didn't stop when you didn't want them to. Today we speak about other things because we've more or less solved that problem. We put some new content into it. Slogans, the same, they change over time. And maybe I think slogans could perhaps describe different periods of time. Well, the first Volvo slogan that I know was the Swedish car in the 1930s. Very strong emphasis on that. And then after the Second World War, it was the lasting value of Volvo, which you can understand after the World War, right? And then the safe car and now we're back somehow built by Sweden. And we know many slogans for the Coca Cola company as well, because they're in the back of our heads. Would you say that slogans follow history and time in different ways? Could we write our modern history through slogans?
You could write it through advertising. Slogan, maybe not. Actually, I teach a class at the St. Mary's College in Maryland once a year. I go and I teach a class on American history using nothing but Coke ads, because you can see changes in fashion, hairstyle, race relations, the role of women in the home, all through advertising, because the best advertising holds up a mirror to society. You can look at an ad today and you're seeing a reflection of what's out there. So the slogan, I don't know, because the pause it refreshes is a famous Coke slogan, but translated to German as mach mal pause. So it's not, and that's more of an imperative, take a pause. But I don't know that the slogans, because they get translated in so many languages, 200 countries around the world, but slogans maybe not, but advertising definitely.
Yeah, I agree. We are made by Sweden as such. It's not characterized as a slogan. It's a communication platform. So some are using it, some countries, and some not. Where it works, they're utilizing it. So it's not a slogan as such, but the communication as such is definitely connected to the time and to today. So because we have two guiding principles that I tell my team every day, it's innovative and relevant. Relevant is of course extremely important, and being relevant, you need to be really understand your society today and what's going on in the world around you. And then I think that's where Made by Sweden comes from. So, yeah.
I think you're very right here. Now it's time for us to open up for questions from the floor. And I see one already there.
Hello, very interesting. My name is Petra Eurenius. I work with AstraZeneca. So many relevant topics for us, building on our Swedish heritage. And also to your question there about building, throwing out old history or building on it. But to your sweet discussion about Volvo and being Swedish and using the Swedish alongside with this being safe, secure cars. How valid is this Swedishness in other markets in the world? More curious. I mean, it makes us happy when you tell that the new owners will wish to continue working on this, building on the Swedishness. Yeah. But is it relevant in other countries?
The further away you get from Sweden, the less relevant or known Sweden is. In China, it's still Scandinavia, Sweden, somewhere north of Europe. So you could say no. It's less relevant the further away you get from Sweden. Absolutely, but we've said we have to be firm about where we come from and our origin and our heritage. So nevertheless, that's something that differentiates us. So let's talk about Swedishness. But you can also you don't have to say Sweden all the time. You can just be a bit Swedish, how you're thinking and how you can prove it without saying it. If it's not that relevant saying Sweden, you can prove it. And it's also, I think, we're all about people, very people focused in our society as such, and equality, and so I think it's a lot of interesting values that we take from Sweden and can bring it to the world and build upon as well in our marketing.
Yes, and a question for Per, actually also to Ted. What about the openness of the archive? Is it open for independent researchers, and has something changed when the Chinese took over?
Nothing has. I think Søren and Per-Åke, you can answer this about the archives. I can already tell you nothing has changed.
Right, it's Søren Nybo from the Volvo Museum. We're also hosting the archives. Yes, it is open for researchers to come. You could say on a limited scale. It's not an open door where you can just come in, but we do it, and we sign up some certain confidentiality agreements, and we open it up to serious research for sure. Yeah. I just want to set everybody's mind at peace also. from what you said, Anders, that the crayfish parties are dead. Well, they disappeared a few years, but they're up and running again. So on the 14th of September, we're hosting in the museum. I think we have 78, I would say, old boys and old girls. It's the ones, you know, they have some 40, 45 plus years of service with Volvo. So we're having a great crayfish party. And it's on an annual basis, so it's up and running again.
Our archives, like most American corporations, are closed to the public. We exist for Coca Cola, the marketer, the PR, the legal, etc. When you email me and you want access, I send you to PR, and they review the request. And we try to be as open as we can, and we tried to solve it in one way. We donated an entire run of our advertising, both print, TV, radio, to the U.S. Library of Congress. So it is available. We also donated all of our internal employee newsletters and magazines and digitized form to the Library of Congress. So as much as we could, we threw the advertising universe to the Library of Congress and made that available. And then from within there, it's the HR records, and it's the records that we just can't make open. We can't open them up. We have opened up to 2 or 3 professors over the 20 years I've been there. And we try to be as open as we can. But we also get so many requests. I mean, I'm not kidding. 1,000 emails a day asking how much a bottle's worth, or my grandfather worked at a bottle, you know. And there's no way that we could, you know, I have a staff of 3, and it would overwhelm us to try to open up.
Well, you know, I'd like to go on here, but we can't.
Yeah.
It's lunchtime now, and I am sure you have more questions to these gentlemen. Just grab them during lunch. I've enjoyed this conversation very much, and it was so interesting to hear your different positions and the way that you work very awarely with history and using it as an asset. It's been very interesting. And thank you all for questions. We'll return in 1 hour.
No, thank you.
Thank you.